3.
And we are back, folks, on the Big 1050 WTKA on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA online at the big1050.com. And pleased to be joined once again this fall. We had him in studio, it seems like a couple months ago now, on a time that it went so quick. It went by so briskly that there were things left hanging. And he said, we got to have you back. And he promised to come back. And he's a man of his word. And so, indeed, he is back. Who am I talking about? Michigan Athletic Director Warde Manuel with us on the phone this morning to field a few more questions as we are midway through the fall. He joins us now on the phone. Warde, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Sam. I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. And we said we would talk in October, man, and we just getting it in on Halloween.
Right. I appreciate, like I said, man, your word. You did. You said, hey, how about I come back in October? And you got it in. So I appreciate it. And so we'll dive right in. When you were last on, we had just started to broach the subject of NIL, and coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, you have been touching on that subject, on that topic, and on revenue sharing with student athletes on your in-house podcast of late. One of the topics that came up, and we've been talking about it on this show, was the topic of advertising in the stadium. You had a survey that you put out, and I'm curious if you had an opportunity to see the results, gauge the feedback from fans on how they would feel about that stream of revenue, whether that would be something that they would be amenable to.
Well, I haven't actually seen the data. Hasn't been compiled by CSL, the company that's doing it for us and has done it around the country for professional and college teams. But I know there are fans who absolutely don't like it. And I know that there's some that would be open to it if we did it the right way. So I'm looking forward to seeing the actual results of the survey, but it's just one of those things where we want in athletics to reach out to our fans to get their opinions. And I know it's going to be varied, and I know people are going to give their feedback. We did that when we put the two towers onto Michigan Stadium. We are going to seek our fans' thoughts so that we can figure out the right decisions to make and how to do things that will help us either enhance the fan experience or drive new revenue streams. Whatever it is that we're looking to do, we just need the fans' feedback.
I feel like, and you fill in this gap for me, if you think it exists too. I feel like there's a gap in understanding about the cost of competing in this day and age of intercollegiate athletics. And I'm talking about competing across the athletic landscape. Of course, in the major revenue sports, but you strive to compete in all the sports. You don't want to take a step back in any of the sports. So if you're going to do that, Warde, I mean, hey, the cost now that you have revenue sharing is exceedingly high. And so these revenue streams, now that you're going to pay athletes, you're going to have to tap into a lot of them. So it feels like it's not just about, tapping into the revenue stream of, the stadium. You're going to have to find a number of new revenue streams, that just being one. Am I off base there?
No, you're not, Sam. You're right on. I mean, with 29 programs, and for the last 3 years, we won more conference championships in the Big Ten than any other school in the Big Ten. And so we have to really think about this broad-based program, and what we have wanted to be at Michigan and will continue to be is have and support a broad-based program, 29 sports, to win, not to just participate. And so for me, obviously, the biggest sport is football here. We know that it drives our fans and how they people see the success we're having. We had great success the past 3 years, obviously. But also what's important to us is the other 28. And so we have to figure out ways to keep up with competition. And across the nation, when you look at programs that we compete with, we're one of the only ones, if not, there might be one other, that don't have any advertising in the stadium. Now, something we're proud of. And it's actually something I really like, Sam. I don't want, I'm not trying to drive us to do advertising in the stadium, but it is something we have to look at all possible revenue streams, and we have to look at ways to reduce expenses in order to keep up competitively and to continue to drive the success that we have. And so for fans who think that this is absolute, it is not. I have spoken with President Ono. I've talked to the board, but I've never said I want to do this. That's never come out of my mouth. But I do owe it to us, to our department, to our programs, and to our fans to explore and ask questions about what would be acceptable if we decided to do something of that nature.
Yeah, so that's the pushback from fans. Well, so let me give you the fan side of this. Fans are like, no, don't raise ticket prices. No, don't make me look at advertising in stadium. In stadium, hey, why don't you cut staff? Or Michigan or President Ono, why are you making athletics pay for scholarships? Why don't you cut that? Cut paying for scholarships. Cut staff, Ward. Why not do that?
Well, we're looking at everything in terms of our expenditures. I can promise you that, and there's no, in essence, there's nothing at this time that is not something that we're thinking about, Sam, in terms of revenue or expenses. We are doing things to make sure that we have the right staff and the right number. We are doing those things to make sure that we are supporting our programs, but as we grow into this revenue share, that we're actually putting money where it needs to be. And so Michigan has never, and I have never, been someone who is trying to put everything on our fans. That's not what I'm going to do. That's not what Michigan does. But we also have to look at ways as we do this to grow our revenues to keep up with the expenses that we have to run our programs. And so I understand our fans, the sense that we need to look at expenses and things that we can do in athletics and as a university, and the board and the president and my colleagues, the provost and the CFO, everybody's looking at ways that we can support athletics in this change that we have.
Yeah. So it's a weird sort of dichotomy. I mean, you hear from fans that we hear it all the time. We had this debate because me personally, I'm on the side of this. This is modern. This is modern athletics. I mean, put some advertising in the stadium. I've been on that train, and I go back and forth, and they're ready to rub you out. Me and my man John Baker go back and forth about it all the time. But they say, hey man, this is Michigan. That's not how you do it. I say, anyway, do you want to compete? And they want to add sports. Well, that runs counter of cutting costs if you're going to add sports. So, 6 and 1/2 dozen up.
Sam, I want to emphasize, it is not my first choice to do. I don't want to do it. I love the fact that we don't have advertising in Michigan Stadium. But to your point, what we have to look at is the way to make sure that we are healthy, that we reduce expenses, but that we have the resources and the revenue coming in. So this is not the first thing that I want to do or we want to do. And it's not going to be done lightly if we do it at all. Mm-hmm. And so I want our fans to understand this is not planned. This is not something we already are going to do next year, or we know we're going to do it. That is not the case. It is something that we're looking at, and we have to explore other ways as opposed to just raising ticket prices. How do we not put that all on the backs of our fans? So it's those kind of things that we're looking at, but there's different perspective on it, and I respect it, but I just want people to understand, I don't want to do it. I love the fact that we don't have it, but I also know that we need to look at and explore every potential avenue for increasing revenue and reducing expenses to make sure that we're touching and knowing what everything it is that could help us support our programs.
We're talking to Michigan Athletic Director Warde Manuel here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at thebig1050.com. And so the impetus for the survey was the revenue sharing. It is imminent. It is coming, Warde. And with that on the horizon, the question, how will it be dispersed? How will it be distributed? Have schools in general, I mean, has there been a determination about how it will be shared? How will it be dispensed? Has that been determined yet? I mean, talking about among student athletes on campus.
Yeah, we're working through that, Sam, right now, and looking at how to distribute it. Obviously, the bulk of the revenue coming from television and coming into athletics is around football. Men's basketball drives some, women's basketball drives some. We have some other sports that drive some revenue, but we haven't finalized everything. But there's two ways to do it. It's a market base where you distribute it based on the revenue coming in and what sports drive the revenue, or gender equity where you balance exactly half and half, let's say, as it relates to what we're doing. We're going to try to make the decision and look at also where our competitors are and how things are being done, but there's not been a final decision made on exactly what route that we're going to go, or who's going to get who's going to get the money and how much. I mean, all that stuff is under consideration, and we're looking at it in many different ways.
Do we know, how does Title IX play into that? Does it play into that?
It does. Yeah. I mean, Title IX is a federal law that we absolutely have to make sure that we understand how all of this fits into it. The court has not, in what they have done with the House settlement, has not made a distinction on how it is to be distributed. However, in the back damages case, they are distributing it to football and men's and women's basketball student athletes. In football, in the 70%, 75%, basketball, I think, is getting 15 or 20, and women's basketball is getting the rest based on how television is laid out. So that is one of the cases that people are looking at as to how that revenue is being distributed in the back damages to determine, is that the way we should go as we move forward. But Title IX is absolutely a conversation that we have when we look at this. We have to. It's a federal law that we need to make sure that we're looking at as we make decisions around this.
Last question, Warde, on this whole topic of revenue sharing and revenue streams and funding. I wonder how you thread the needle as athletic director of fundraising for the department and helping push the initiative that all institutions have to now, where you have collectives that you're affiliated with, collectives that have to go to the same donor bases that you tap into for your athletic departments, the same donor bases that the institutions at large tap into for their fundraising as well. And these collectors are tapping into them to fundraise for NIL? How do you push, motivate, ask those, encourage, that's the better word, encourage those donor bases to donate to those NIL initiatives and donate to your greater athletic department initiatives at the same time? How do you encourage them to do both concurrently? How do you thread that needle?
Well, it's not really a needle to thread. It's not a hard conversation for me to have or to bring up with our donors in either in a group setting or one-on-one. I really think, Sam, it's a part of what we do. It's a part of the conversation that I have with our donors. I do encourage people, fans, donors, to give to our collectives, particularly Champion Circle, who is a partner of ours and corporate sponsor. And so for me, it's not a hard conversation to have, and the encouragement is there. What I have to do is, with our donors in particular, is we have to listen to them as well, like we do anyway, whether it was NIL or whether it's give to a scholarship, or do you want to give to a building, or do you want to give to a program to support the athletic department? I have to listen to where our donors are. So I'm encouraging them all the time. And that's a part of the conversations I've been having with our donors for a while now. But they have to make the decision. And some have decided to make the decision because I'm highly encouraging them to support our NIL initiatives and collectives. I'm trying to get people to understand, we cannot lament that it's changed and athletics is not the way it used to be. We have to move forward. And the way we move forward is by supporting NIL collectives and providing student athletes with that resource as a component of everything else we do. Academics, athletic support, all the things that we put around our student athletes. That is now a important component of what we need to do to maintain success. And I tell them all, if it wasn't for NIL and support last year's team wouldn't have come back. Mm-hmm. Many of them came back because they knew we were going to support them through NIL as well as other aspects. And look what happened, right? So we just need to realize that until and probably after we're able to share revenue with our student athletes, we're going to need them to support our student athletes through NIL.
Yeah, it feels like the national championship should be kind of a rallying cry. This is what is possible, and then at the same time, it should allow for an alarm bell to be sounded. Like, hey, that's what's possible. And if if you don't, when you see sort of the other end of the spectrum, when a lot of those guys are leaving, like that class, the last vestiges of that national championship, a lot of those guys are about to go by the wayside. So if you want to sound an alarm, all those guys are about to go. This is alarm time, it would seem to me. Anyway.
Yeah, and it's important to replace them, and we're recruiting, and Sharon and the staff are doing an excellent job. We're going to continue to recruit at a high level. We're going to continue to support our programs at a high level. And so it is incumbent on our fans to consider supporting NIL and going to the Champion Circle website, going to mgoblue.com and connecting to that website, and consider supporting the Champion Circle. There is no gift that's too small, and certainly there's not a gift that's too large. So it would be helpful to us and to our student athletes, and more importantly, to receive that support as well, again, as the other things that we at Michigan put around our student athletes, and the educational component of that is always primary for us, as well as athletic success.
Ward, in our final few minutes, one thing that we didn't get a chance to really talk about the last time is being chair of the College Football Playoff Committee. As first of all, congratulations on that. Second of all, can you tell us how does that work? I mean, how does the committee work, and kind of take us through the ins and outs of committee operation and your role in being chair?
Well, first, Sam, thanks. I'm honored. I was honored to be asked and honored to serve college football in this capacity. It really, it starts. We've been watching games since the season started, and taking a look at who's playing, how well they're playing. We can go back and look at games. We have technology that gives us access to every game in the country. And we have all kind of data that we can look at. And so we will go down. Everybody goes in on Sunday just to make sure from a travel standpoint, there's no glitches that would prevent you from getting in. And we meet Monday afternoon into the evening, starting at noon till about 8 o'clock. And we discuss and debate the top 25, and we go through a process of getting that top 25 together. We continue to look at it the next morning on Tuesday, starting at around 8 o'clock up until about noon. Sometimes we finish earlier, but normally we finish by noon. And then the rest of the committee will go back home, and I stay and prepare for the release of the top 25, and then go on to ESPN and explain and answer any questions from Reese and the crew. And then I'll have a teleconference with media from around the country, along with Rich Clark, our executive director. And so that is sort of the lay of how we do it, the process, the agenda. And I would just assure people that there's a lot of great discussion. We have a bunch of people who not only love college football, but know college football, the ins and outs. There are 4 coaches. There are 2 NFL Hall of Famers, college football Hall of Famers. There's several of us who are athletic directors who played the game. We have an athletic director who didn't play football, but she was a Division I athlete at Georgia. We have a journalist who covered football for over 2 decades, and everybody is committed, engaged in the debate. We try to leave no stone unturned as it relates to how we look at teams and compare teams. And so whether that's through strength of schedule or head-to-head competition or different statistical measures when you compare them side by side or in groups. And so it's really a thorough process to analyze each and every team and to rank the teams from 1 to 25.
Yeah, man, I'm always interested in how the sausage is made. That being one of them. Interested in how these relationships play out into broader discussions that have nothing to do with the college football playoff selections. For instance, the last time you were here, we had the discussion about revenue sharing. And I was like, hey, are we going to see a day, Ward, where revenue is going to be merit based, where you see money be dispensed based on the institutions that bring in the most eyes? Are these discussions that are hashed out as well? And I wonder, as you get in these rooms and you're talking with these teams and people that are involved, and these discussions kind of break out, if you're starting to hear opinions on these kinds of topics that lean in these directions. I think the last time you were here, you were talking about there being other ways in which revenue, for instance, was going to filter to those teams that participate in things like the and like playoffs or Big Ten championship games and things
Right.
of that like.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you could see that there was the conversation, I think last year, you know, the ACC was considering ways, and I think they came up with a way to distribute revenue based on, you know, success on the fields of play, particularly in football. We have not looked at it. We have not had that discussion in the Big Ten. I don't think they've had the discussion. I haven't heard any other league has had that discussion about that kind of revenue distribution. I'm not saying it won't ever, you know, come up, but it just hasn't at this point. We are fortunate in the Big Ten to have great institutions that are really performing at a high level. And we have, since our inception, had revenue sharing as a part, equal revenue sharing as a part of what we do. Again, I'm not saying it'll never change. I'm just telling you the discussion hasn't been there. And it's not something that anybody's pounding on the door to or on the table to say we need to have that discussion at this time.
I hear you. Well, Ward, hey man, like I said, man of your word, you came in with us in October. You said I was gonna hit you in October, and you did. We appreciate
I
it.
had a lot going on, man. There's a lot going on, and I also do want to tell those who didn't get a chance that you did a unbelievable job in emceeing in Greg Harden's celebration of life, and I just really appreciate that. And I know how much you meant to you. You know how much you meant to me. But I just want to let you know I really appreciate you did an awesome job, and it was just fantastic.
Yeah, I was it was a special thing to be a part of. Did a lot for my soul. I got to tell you, appreciate it, Shalia, for allowing me to do it. I got to tell you,
Yep.
so it was a privilege. So appreciate you coming on today. Thanks a lot for spending some time. I know you got a lot to do, so like I said, thanks a lot, and let's do it again.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Sam.
All
Go
right,
Blue.
thanks a lot. That's Michigan Athletic Director